It seems like a long time since I've been doing this in person, but um, my colleague, cohort in crime, Miss Alexa Jett, has been doing an incredible job in my absence. And I am here tonight um, to interview, speak to, discuss um, topics around anxiety, I would say, and more, with a friend. I think I can call Dan a friend, Dan Dressen, who is now one of our moderators in our AnCan active surveillance cohort, and who I personally have had my eye on to do a solo arts heal show for a long time. And so it's really a huge pleasure for me to introduce tonight Dan Dressen. Come on in, Dan. Hello. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Dan is actually spent many, many years of his life a lot closer to the Marsh Theatre Company than where he is now, I believe, although I don't know if you ever went through the doors of the Marsh Theatre Company, but Um, did you ever go through the doors of the Marsh Theatre Company? I never asked you that.
No, um I primarily lived currently I'm living in Idaho, been here for almost 3 years, and prior to that I spent about 20 years in Davis, California. And prior to that my wife and I were spent about 17, 18 years in Southern California. Then before
Okay.
that grew up in Minnesota.
Okay. Um, Dan, for many years, and he'll tell us later in the show for how long, has been informally performing. I think that's probably a good way to put it, wouldn't you say, Dan?
I think that's a pretty good way of stating it, right? Very good.
But what I do know is that Dan has been singing and playing the guitar since he was maybe even a pre-teenager, a tweener, or whatever they call it that now. Because didn't I know I heard somewhere that your sister took guitar lessons and that's how you finished up playing the guitar. Now, how old were you at the time?
Well, she was still in grade school. She wanted to play guitar, and so she had taken some lessons. And then when the guitar was sitting there at night, I would come out and play. I would come out and try to learn. And I was 2 grades ahead of her. My sister's name is Sharon. She now lives in Indiana. But
Right.
that's how I got started, pretty much on my own. For the most part. And then when I'm in high school, that would be in the 1970s, late 1970s, and acoustic music was kind of popular at the time, so I kind of fit right in. That type of music was.
Oh. And was your family musical or was it just you and your sister?
My mother played keyboard a little bit. That's primarily it. Probably whatever music gene we probably got from my mother.
I see. But I'm very impressed that your sister took lessons, but you were just able to come out and pick it up and start playing. Is that right?
That's pretty much it. Have I haven't had really very many lessons. I took a couple lessons a few times just to learn a couple songs, and that was about it. Nothing. Everything that I know is basically just basic stuff you learn from the very beginning, and you just learn how to repeat it over and over again.
But but I mean you finger pick. You don't play chords, you actually finger pick. So that says something in and of itself.
Yeah, that's something I probably do a little bit more than most people. Um, but most of the chords I play are basic and some bar chords here and there. But yeah, the finger picking kind of helps to bring the song alive a little bit. Helps a
Yeah.
lot.
Well, we're going to hear a few songs later in the show, so everybody will enjoy that. Um, have you Minnesota, Southern California, Northern California, Idaho, have you always played this sort of open mic circuit just informally when you want to get up and play?
Yeah, that's happened when once I retired more or less. That's when I had the time, and so I was playing more, and I wanted to get out, and kind of thought I could share what I had with others. And at first, I would went to the park and just kind of played there, and as people would pass by, I would kind of get used to playing, where people might be able to hear me, and so that's it's primarily when I was more or less retired and had the time to spend playing and like the first open mic, for example, that I played at, I saw it ad in the paper. They got this music store was opening up a store next in another town, and they're going to have an open mic. And the open mic, it was primarily young kids, you know, much younger than myself, and it was out in the street on a Friday night as the cars were passing by. And it's very, very unstructured, very, very informal, but it was a start.
So when you were back in Minnesota in the day in the 70s, um, what music were you listening to, and how did that influence what you play now?
Oh, what happened there was in the early 70s, you had some of the more folk type musicians break out, like the John Denver, the Joni Mitchells, the um, Cat Stevens, that type of music you'd hear on the
Mhm.
radio. And I was graduated from high school in 1970. I went to trade school for 2 years, and then I worked in the trade for another 3 years to get my skills. And what happened then, I went back to the university in 1975, at the University of Minnesota, and I went there for engineering. I went there for a year, but what I found was this place at the bottom of Kaufman Union is set up for the students, something for the students, and it was something it was a venue called the Whole Coffee House, and they brought in music from not only local music but also national, not regional, the regional type music, and also even national music. And that's when I had kind of this awakening of there's other music out there that you don't hear on the radio, and that had a huge influence on me.
Mhm. Yeah. Now, we're going to hear several songs, and we are going to hear about um, the crux of the reason we have you here, which is that you live with a chronic condition. And we want to talk a little bit about that chronic condition and how the music has helped it. But we're first going to hear you play some songs. Would you like to introduce the first song, and then we'll talk about the following ones?
Okay. Um, well, the first song I chose to play was a song by that was written by Guy Clark. Uh, it's well, first of all, when it was like 2012 or when I started going to the open mic, it was in a small town, Winters, that was near where I lived, and um, that's when I started playing some of the open mics. And well, anyway, the first song I'm going to play is called "The Cape," and the reason I chose it because I don't really, I feel that I'm very comfortable with it, where I'm at as far as what I have with my disease, my prostate cancer, but the songs that I chose because this song is called "The Cave" by Guy Clark, and it's a song about It's about believing in something. It's about seeing things how you want to see them, and it's about having a positive attitude. And the song's
We
called.
love that. We love that. We love the positive attitude. I'm turning the mic over to you.
Okay, this one's called "The Cape." It's by Guy Clark. He's 8 years old with a flour sack cape tied around his neck. He climbed up on the garage and he's figuring what the heck. So he wound his courage up so tight that the whole thing came unwound. He took a running start, bless his heart, he headed for the ground. But he's one of those who knows life is just a leap of faith. Spread your arms and hold your breath and always trust your cape. Now he's all grown up with a flour sack cape tied around his dreams. He's full of piss and vinegar, he's busting at the seams. So he licked his finger to check the wind, he says gonna be do or die. He wasn't scared of nothing, he was pretty sure he could fly. Well, he's one of those who knows life is just a leap of faith. Spread your arms and hold your breath and always trust your cape. Now he's old and gray with a flour sack cape tied around his head. He's still jumping off the garage and he will be till he's dead. All these years the people said he's acting like a kid. He did not know he could not fly, so he did. He's one of those who knows life is just a leap of faith. Spread your arms and hold your breath and always trust your cape. He's one of those who knows life is just a leap of faith. Spread your arms and hold your breath and always trust your cape.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. That's wonderful. Where did you find that song?
That was a song. I'm a Guy Clark fan. How did I get into Guy Clark? I'm not really sure, but I know that I bought his first albums a long time ago, and then it was later on. Oh, I believe someone else had done the song. I heard it on the radio, and then I found out who did it, and I just liked the song, so I picked it up. I learned how to play it.
I think that maybe that song we should keep track of and maybe even make it a theme song for AnCan because it's so appropriate to so many of our groups. So many of our people need a cape and need to believe where they're going. So how's your cape doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Do you think you've had a cape?
Um, well, I think, yeah, in a way, my health has always been good for the most part. And so when I was diagnosed with the prostate cancer, I felt, okay, that's just something that I deal with it at the time and make my changes, do whatever I have to do and make my changes. And both my parents lived to be quite old. They were both lived to be into their late 90s, and
Wow.
so I never really had too much of a health problem. I figured it was just something that we have to deal with as we get older. It's always like they say, it's always something.
Yeah. I think I think that if you have a cape, it makes it a lot easier.
Yes, for some people, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does.
Yeah. So what are you going to perform for us next?
Okay, the next. Actually, I'm pretty fond of this next song because I was hearing it on the radio. It's one of the songs I just enjoyed, and I heard it for quite a while. I heard it on the radio because they were playing it, and then I decided I was going to go ahead and learn to play it. And this is probably like in 2011, as I recall. And about a year later, they were had a in my town. I was living in Davis, and they had a talent contest. And so I thought, well, I thought for the heck of it, I was going to sign up for this talent contest. Like I said, I had only played prior to that. I'd only been playing like 6 times out on the street. And when I told my wife that I was going to, and it's kind of, you had to audition for it. You can't just, you had to, not only that, you had to pay $10 to audition for it. So there was 20 people who auditioned, and they selected 12 people to play, and I was one of the people who they had selected to be part of it. And so after the auditions, and they let us know with email that wasn't been selected, I went to my wife, and like I said, I had really no experience playing. It was like just on the streets at this open mic. That was my experience. So after I was selected, I went to my wife and I said, well, I auditioned for the thing, for this what they call Davis Got Talent. I auditioned for it, and I was been selected, and I said, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. The good news is that I passed the audition, and now I get to play in front of a real audience. The bad news is that I passed the audition, and now I have to play in front of a real audience. It's one of them.
May I just remind you that at this point you've been playing, I don't know how long, probably a good 50 years or more.
At that point, it was like 40 years. Yeah, almost 40 years.
So, it wasn't exactly new. So what did you I think you're going to tell us this is what you played.
Yeah, I played the song. It's by Bill Morrissey, and when I used to go to these open mics when I was at the university, and I felt it was important to kind of communicate with the audience, not just play music. You have to kind of tell a little bit about the songs. So I didn't know what I was going to tell. I didn't know the story I was going to tell. And anyway, what I ended up telling, before I played the song, I did that good news, bad news story for the audience, and they got a little chuckle out of it. But I also thought about telling the story of Bill Morrissey, because I was hearing him on the radio. It was on Sirius. It's actually on Sirius X on the satellite channel, and from when I first heard him to when I wanted to learn the song again, know something about him, he had actually had a drug and alcohol problem, and he had passed away by the time I had gotten. Within that 1 year, he had passed away he was like 60 years old, quite young. So that was one story I thought about telling, but I didn't. Anyway, the song's called Birches, and it's one of my favorites. They sat up I have a backup plan for this, just a second. This happens to me sometimes. Okay, I know what it is. They sat at each end of the couch, watched as the fire burned down so quiet, On this winter night, not a house light on for miles around. And then he said, I think I'll fill the stove. It's getting time for bed. She looked up, I think I'll have some wine. How about you, she asked, but he declined. Warren, she said, maybe just for tonight. Let's fill the stove with birches, watch as the fire burns bright. How long has it been? I know it's quite a while. Pour yourself a half a glass and stay with me a little while. But Warren shook his head as if she made some kind of joke. Birches on a winter night, no, fill the stove with oak. 'Cause oak will burn long and hot like a July afternoon. Birch will burn itself out by the rising of the moon. And you hate a cold house same as me, am I right or not? All right, that's true, she said. It was just a thought. She said, Warren, you do look tired. Maybe you should go up to bed. I'll take care of the wood tonight. Oak, he told her. Oak, she said. She listened to his footsteps as he climbed up the stairs. She pulled her sweater on, set her wine glass on the chair. She walked down to the cellar wood box. It was cold as an ice chest. Then she climbed back up with 4 logs, each as white as a wedding dress. Then she filled the stove and she poured the wine. She sat down on the floor. She curled her legs beneath her as the fire sprang to life once more. And it filled the room with its hungry light, and it cracked as it drew air. And the shadows danced a jittery waltz as if no one else was there. She stood up in the heat. She twirled around the room, and the shadows, they saw nothing but a young girl on a honeymoon. But she knew the time, it would be short. Soon the fire would start to fade. She thought of heat, she thought of time. She called it an even trade.
Love it. I heard this song the first time a couple of weeks ago when we started preparing for this, and it's such a great song. And for me, in particular, it strikes a chord because I live in deep southern Arizona, and I have a fireplace, and most of the wood that we burn here is mesquite. So if you think oak burns slow and hot, try mesquite. Try mesquite. You've got to be an expert just to get a flame out of it. And then, of course, we have some softer woods around the property, and they get brought in, and you burn them, and they flare up, and it's all very exciting. But then they're gone. So, I love it. But you got to listen to the song. So the song tells a story.
It's kind of interesting because I heard that song several times before I really listened to it and really knew what the story, really listened to it and understood what the story was about. And it's kind of interesting because, like I said, I played this at this Davis Got Talent, and they had winners, they had prizes for people who performed. And I didn't win first place, and I didn't win second place, and I didn't win third place either. But as we were walking out of as we were leaving the place with my wife Lila, I was near one of the judges, and he commented that he really enjoyed the song. And he said that I made it hard for them to decide. So that meant quite a lot to me.
I love it. I love it. Like what predominantly is the wood that you have up there in Idaho? Is it pine?
Actually right here. There's not very much there's not a lot of woods right here where I live because it's kind of like the high desert almost. We have to water everything in order to keep grasses, and we have a lot of irrigation. There's a lot of planting. There's a lot of crops around here, potatoes uh, and such, but they irrigate everything.
How did you come to decide to move to you I know you have a very strange address that is just coordinates, so you have to be in a pretty rural area. How did you come to this place?
We have some friends who had moved here earlier. My wife and I, we had traveled. We had come to this area previously, uh, just traveling, and uh, we looked for houses, and we saw this particular community. There's there's about 20 houses in this community. We're about 4 miles from town.
Mm-hmm.
We're next to the Snake River Canyon, and
Mm.
the town that we're near the town that we're close to is called Filer, and its population is I think like 2,000 something like that. So we're fairly rural. Um, but the address is kind of interesting because it's the it's the coordinates from the uh, I think it's the west southwest corner of the county. So 4453 north, 2157 east. That's the coordinates for the county.
Uh, It's it's really rural. I know Jimmy Greenfield helped produce this. A big thanks to Jimmy and to Alexa. Um, and Jimmy knows Idaho because he's got family in Idaho and he spent a lot of his life. His dad lived in Idaho. So, when I said its coordinates, he said, "Oh, that's really rural. That's really rural." So, um, so where do you play open mic in such a rural community?
Well, I was fortunate that in a way because playing the open mic was kind of my outlet. I found several places that would had open mics, and they kind of rotated. Some business they'd want to generate uh, some business, so they'd have an open mic, and then some other place. Then I'd probably close, and some other place would 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 start it, and that. So I was always playing probably like twice a month. And that was like one of my concerns for my wife Lila that I wouldn't find a place to play here. But as it happened, there's a restaurant bar called the Cove, and they have a weekly open mic. So I'm there almost every week. Plus, there's some other places that there's another neighboring town. They have an open mic that I haven't been to yet, but it's around if you look for it.
So the Cove, that's in Filer, or where is that? Twin Falls, or where is that?
That's in Twin Falls.
Okay. Okay, the big city.
Yeah, the big city.
All right. Well, I want to talk to you a little bit about the music and your condition, but let's hear one more song and then we'll get into it after that. What are you going to play for us next?
Okay, this one you haven't heard before, and the reason gonna play it is because here again, I thought this one had the theme. This song kind of fits with what you probably want to, with having a positive attitude and seeing things how you in a positive light. It's called Delicate Balance, and I just recirculated it just recently, and I think I can play it. I took some notes here just in case. Um, well, I'll just take a chance. Deep within, there's a feeling Time is nothing but space, and between every minute and mile that is in it, somehow there's a beautiful face. And it's all such a delicate balance that the sport of infinity gives. The expectations we have can lead down that path where that devil discouragement lives. I dreamed I was barer than naked, and it scared me so bad that I called. Help me back to the prison with the chains of the living, although nothing had hurt me at all. And it's all such a delicate balance as it turns through the circles of air. To worry does nothing but steals from the loving and robs from the pleasure that's there. To worry does nothing but steals from the loving and robs from the pleasure that's there. Deep within there's a feeling that love and understanding's the door, and honesty is the key that was given to you and me to open it and so many more. And it's all such a delicate balance. It takes away just as much as it gives. To live it is real, to love it is to feel you're a part of what everything is. And it's all such a delicate balance that the sport of infinity gives. Expectations we have can lead down that path where the devil discouragement lives. And it's all such a delicate balance as it turns through the circles of air. To worry does nothing but steals from the loving and robs from the pleasure that's there. And it's all such a delicate balance. It takes away just as much as it gives. To live it is real, to love it is to feel you're a part of what everything is. To live it is real, to love it is to feel you're a part of what everything is.
You are spot on. You're spot on. Oh my gosh. Another great. I think we have to collect some of these songs for an AnCan, a special AnCan playlist then. People, a lot of people really don't understand prostate cancer. And too many people consider it to be an inconsequential disease when in fact it is a major killer, and there are a lot of people that have very significant disease and that threatens their life. But there are also a lot of people who don't have such consequential disease, and you're fortunate enough to be in the group that maybe you do and maybe you don't. And we know now at AnCan that a lot of people in that group live, even though their disease may not be as life-threatening as some of the guys who are in our advanced group, that they live with a huge amount of anxiety. And so when I listen to this song telling us to be aware of the anxiety, and essentially the message we try to tell everybody, which is, as hard as it is, live in the present, live right now, that makes it easy. What for you, how have you dealt with the challenges of having this uncertain disease?
Well, initially, as soon as I was diagnosed, my wife Lila had saw an article in the paper that there was a support group where I was living in Davis, California. And so I started going to the support group meeting, and then from there found out there was another support group meeting in Sacramento. So I I would be going to these monthly support group meetings, but they were for all levels of prostate cancer,
Right.
and so because of that, I was hearing you know, I was hearing the full gamut of what it can be. Sometimes I would get pretty nervous about it. How bad can this be? And so yeah, I had a little bit of emotional thing going up and down, but I just kind of thought, well, that's not necessarily my case. So I kind of felt semi comfortable with where I was at. And as time went on, um, I I keep monitoring it, and very early I changed my diet. I was probably about a year and a half into it. Well, from these support group meetings, I had heard one of the doctors, Dr. Charles Snuffy Myers. He had real bad prostate cancer, and he changed his diet, and he seemed to have survived it. But he was very much promoted diet as one of the things to help with the disease. And I always kind of remember he talked about uh, I'm blanking out a little bit.
Exercise, diet, exercise.
But there's one of the foods that not sugars, but anyway, he he talked about
Did,
one of the foods that adds one of the foods that what he said add fuel to the fire, and it was
yes,
the omega 6 foods that are high in
yes,
omega 6.
yes.
And one of my favorite snacks was popcorn.
Corn.
I had a wonderful popcorn popper that had to go. Sweet corn in the summertime. No more sweet corn in the summertime. And I always look at cereal boxes if they have corn in it. So I don't eat those. I don't eat the cereals that are based on corn. And I went to I got away from dairy products for the most part. I found a wonderful substitute for milk. I use flax milk. My urologist had suggested walnut milk because that has the omega 3 in it, which is the good omega. And since then, I discovered the flax milk, which has more than twice as much omega 3 in it. So that's my go-to for a milk substitute. It's I just made some. Well, there were kind of big changes, but I didn't make a lot of changes. Just some big changes on like a diet, and I'm trying to do more exercise. I think I know that that's kind of important.
So I come back a little bit to the anxiety we were just talking about, which is I think you should allow yourself to have some of the stuff that you really like, even if you don't think it's that good for you, but not too much of it. So it's okay to have popcorn once a month. It's okay to have a piece of sweet corn a couple of times a month in the summer. It's okay to have red meat even a couple of times in the summer because it reduces the anxiety. What are you thinking?
I remember this one guy when I was going to the meetings. He also had taken on a vegetarian diet, but then he says, "But once a month, I have this big old juicy steak."
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't because I can't tolerate meat, unfortunately, for many years, but I I would like to be able to, and if I could, I would once a month. I have to tell you how you found us at AnCan, and of course, one of the unusual things that we offer at AnCan is we have a group just for people like you. And how have you found that compared to the other groups that you were in?
I was going to two support groups, one in Sacramento, one local, where I was at in Davis, California. And then when the COVID hit, that kind of shut everything down. And I keep track of I keep track of some of my. I have a calendar that I went back in, and I've been with AnCan for almost 4 years.
Wow.
And I don't really recall how I found it. Probably through the support group meeting, and I probably kind of gradually started coming to the meetings more often and more often. Um, but I've seen some guys who have had really bad prostate cancer. This one guy that I really had a lot of respect for. He had his PSA was as high as 5,000,
Hmm.
and I know I could easily make a mistake on that, but I've heard him say that more than once.
Oh yeah, we see it.
And I've seen
We
him. I saw him at both of those and both of my support group meetings. And then I went up to him. I said, "You've been at you're at both of the meetings." And he said, "Yeah, but not only that, there's two other ones that he was going to. He went to like 4 different support group meetings." And so he knew about as much about his disease as the doctors. It seemed to me. And then one other time when another guy, his name was Charles. I always respect him for the way he dealt with his disease. And one time another guy came to the meeting, and his name is Greg. And Greg was a nervous wreck because his PSA was 800, and like I said, he wasn't dealing with it very well. Anyway, Charles took Greg under his wing more or less, and I would see them coming to the meetings together all the time, both in Sacramento and in Davis. And just before the COVID shut the meetings down, the very last local meeting that I was at, Charles was at the meeting, and he said that he was afraid because he also had at one point had skin cancer as well as prostate cancer, and he was afraid because his skin cancer came back. And so then I lost touch with everyone because of COVID. And then when I finally came back, they started coming to the meetings again. Charles had lost his fight with his prostate cancer, all told. But I was seeing Greg now. Greg had kind of taken on the role that Charles had. He became kind of a very calm leader of the group, and he had taken on the role that Charles once had, which I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think peer support is incredibly important. And one of the things we try to do at AnCan is to try and keep people with similar diseases in the same groups, because it can be really scary for people who don't have life-threatening disease to be listening to people, as you found out, who do have life-threatening disease. So, that's why we've separated these groups the way we do.
Yeah, it makes sense to do so because when I was coming away from these support group meetings, I was a little bit emotional up and down. I wasn't sure. I realized this could be really bad, but does it really apply to me? I didn't know. It's just
Right, right. So what are you going to play for us next, Mr. Dressen?
okay. This one's gonna be a little bit different.
Okay.
Let me see how I gotta set this one up. Okay, I'll just go ahead and play it, and then I'll tell you about it. This one's called "Homeless." This is another Guy Clark song. I'll tell you later how I came. Tell a little story about it. Cardboard sign, old and bent, says, "Friend for life, 25 cents." Cardboard sign, old and bent, says, "Friend for life, 25 cents." When did this start making sense? Man, it's really getting cold. Sometimes I forget things, I get confused. I could still be playing but pay refuse. Now I'm living with the bums and abused. Man, I hate getting old. Homeless, get away from here. Don't give them no money, they just spend it on beer. Homeless will work for food, do anything that you gotta do when you're homeless. Betty sings a song that no one hears as the wind begins to freeze her tears. She says, Betty sings a song that no one hears as the wind begins to freeze her tears. She says God has been so many years, but she's way past complaining. She sings a heartfelt melody, one that begs for harmony. No, it's not what you thought it'd be, but hey, it could be raining. Homeless, get away from here. Don't give them no money, they just spend it on beer. Homeless will work for food, do anything that you gotta do when you're homeless. You know life ain't easy and it takes work. It takes healing cause you're gonna get hurt. You can lose your faith, you can lose your shirt, you can lose your way sometime. Well, you're never really in control. Sometimes you just gotta let it roll. When the final line unfolds, it don't always rhyme. Homeless, get away from here. Don't give them no money, they just spend it on beer. Homeless will work for food, do anything that you gotta do when you're homeless. Cardboard sign, old and bent, says friend for life, 25 cents.
Pretty,
Well,
pretty. So tell us the story.
well, that was. I kind of messed that one up again, but that's my story. Anyway, I was learning that song. Oh, here's the story. So I was playing that song, kind of learning it, and my wife and I, we were in San Francisco, and there's quite a few homeless people out on the street,
Yes, sir.
and I was thinking of the song at that time, and there's this one guy there who had a sign up, and I asked him if I could take his picture, because I was thinking of the song I could do with the song. It matched some of the lyrics in the song. Cardboard sign, old and bent. He had a cardboard sign. Don't give them no money, they just spend it on beer. Anyway, this is the picture of the guy. I don't know. You probably can't see it, but
We can see the picture, but we can't read what's. Oh, why lie? I want beer. Yeah,
so
it's
anyway,
gone through my mind. Why am I giving him money to go buy beer? I have to say, it's
at
probably
least he
not
was
a.
honest about it.
Yes, definitely. We love it. So I just want to encourage anybody who's got a question, throw it in the question Q&A right now. We have a lovely comment. Somebody says, one of the listeners says, thank you for inspiring us with your beautiful music this evening. I love what I see in you, relentless optimism, which is lovely. And a great compliment to you. I want to ask you how or if playing the guitar has helped you any since you've been diagnosed.
Well, I think, like I said, because I started at a young age, and I was playing quite a bit before I was diagnosed. It probably hasn't made too much of a difference, but still I had to, if I'm gonna play at open mic, play at these open mics, I got to focus on something else other than the disease. You have to practice, you have to think about it, and you get away from it, and you just when I'm away, I don't think about it. So in that way, it's a good thing. It's a kind of a relief.
Distracting you.
It's a distraction. It's a good distraction is what it is.
Well, not just for you, but for all of us who are listening to you. It's a lovely distraction for us as well. So, we definitely thank you for that. I have a question for you. Did you happen to listen to the playlist when before the show started?
I was listening. I loved it.
I thought you might.
I don't know. Did a, I
Alex,
really enjoyed that very, very much.
were there any songs there? I thought so because we need to give Miss Alexa her kudos for that. I thought you might enjoy it. Were there any songs you hadn't heard before? Were there any new songs for you in that playlist?
I wrote them all down as I pretty much heard them all.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I really enjoyed that.
I thought you might, as I was listening to it, I was thinking, oh, she hit the nail on the head here. That's what happens when you get a Texas girl. We haven't talked much, and I'm hoping we can squeeze in one more song, but we haven't talked much about how all your songs tell a story. Is that something you seek? You seek?
That just happened. That's what I enjoy. I like songs that tell stories. They have a beginning and an end kind of a thing. It's someone who is relating to the audience with their music, their words.
Mhm. Do you write any of your own stuff? Have you written any of your own songs?
That does not belong in my skill set.
Okay. We won't go there. Now, we've got about 5 minutes left and we need to close out, but do we have a final song that you can leave us with?
Yeah, I have one more song. You actually played it in the beginning of the show. I've got and I have a little bit of an end story to it that goes along with the song. It won't take long.
That's fine. We got the time. Go ahead.
Pack up all your dishes. Make note of all good wishes. Say goodbye to the landlord for me. Some bitch he always bored me. Throw out those LA papers and that moldy bag of vanilla wafers. Adios to all this concrete. Gonna get me some dirt road back street. If I can just get off of this LA freeway without getting killed or caught, I'll be down the road in a cloud of smoke to some land I ain't but. Here's to you, old skinny Dennis, the only one I think I will miss. I can hear your old bass singing, sweet and low like a gift you're bringing. Play it for me one more time now. Got to give it all we can now. I believe everything you're saying. Just to keep on playing. If I can just get off of this LA freeway without getting killed or caught, I'll be down the road in a cloud of smoke to some land I ain't but. Put the pink card in the mailbox and leave the key in the front door lock. They don't find it likely as not. Sure, there's something we have forgot. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry, babe. Love's a gift that's surely handmade. We got something to believe in. Don't you think it's time we're leaving? If I can just get off of this LA freeway without getting killed or caught, I'll be down the road in a cloud of smoke to some land I ain't but if I can just get off of this LA freeway without getting killed or caught, I'll be down the road in a cloud of smoke to some land I ain't but.
Yes, sir. And I think that one of those YouTube clips has you playing that one. Isn't that right?
That's right. I'm playing that song. I'm playing it in Davis. Playing it above the I-80 freeway.
That's right. That's right. I think Alexa posted it in the chat. Maybe if she can figure out which one, she'll post it in again if anybody wants to listen to it. But yeah, no, that's a great song. I had other things on my list to talk to you about. I really wanted to know. I was going to ask you, is that one of the guitars that you built for yourself that you're
No,
playing
this is
right now?
Steve Porter. I bought this. I've been playing this one for almost 50 years. I bought it in 1974, like 50 years. It's like been playing this one for 50 years. But the other ones, they're fine guitars. It's just this one has more volume than the other
Oh,
ones.
okay. Well, I was going to talk to you, but we didn't have time about building guitars because that sort of kind of fascinates me. I bet you don't use oak or pine or oak or birch or mesquite for building guitars, do
No,
you?
no. But I wanted to say something about this song,
Please.
this L.A. Freeway. The second verse in the song, um, it goes, "Here's to you, old skinny Dennis, the only one I think I will miss." Anyway, his name was Dennis Sanchez, and he had something called Morphin syndrome. Well, anyway, he played with Guy Clark for a while when Guy was in L.A., and he had something called Morphin syndrome, which
Yep.
which is a joint disease.
Yep.
And the reason they called him Skinny Dennis because I've seen his weight, his height and weight, expressed a couple different ways. One way was he was 6'9" and 125 pounds. Another one 6'11" and 135 pounds.
Yeah.
So they calling him Skinny Dennis was very appropriate. But the thing is, he died at age 28 from his disease because it caused a lot of stress on the heart. And so he, all of a sudden, he just had a heart attack and died at 28. So that's part of the song.
Well, Mr. Dressen, it has been an absolute pleasure to listen to you, to talk to you, to hear some of your great optimism. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. We will, of course, this is recorded and we'll be posting it to our website and people will be able to listen to it. I want to thank you very much. I just see a comment in the chat from Mr. Walensky that says, "Way to go, Dan." So we got him listening from everywhere. I know Gary Ireland was listening. I know Harold Walensky was listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed prepping for it. It's obvious I'm not a professional, but
No,
it is what it
no,
is.
we loved it. You were great. You were terrific.
And
And we'll come listen to you at the open mic.
I really appreciate AnCan and all you do too, Rick. Very much. I
Thank
appreciate
you so much. Thank you. And audience, please don't forget the tip box for the Marsh Theatre Company, because they couldn't bring this to you without the old tip box. And we will be back, we hope, next month. We've got a couple of exciting things planned for you coming up. And I think with that, I have to hand it back to Miss Brianna.
Right.